prophecy and fear, cracks on the Titan's throne. Even the mightiest thrones crack when shadows of doubt and whispers of fate grow loud. Under the unyielding rule of Kronos, the cosmos was a kingdom ruled by dread. Time itself seemed to freeze as the Titan's iron grip stifled hope and silenced rebellion. His children, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, were born not into glory, but into chains of fear, swallowed by their father's paranoia before they could claim their destinies. But within this suffocating silence, a whisper began, a prophecy spoken in the shadows, carried by trembling voices of seers and oracles alike. The old seers foretold, from the blood of Kronos, a child will rise, one who will shatter the eternal reign and carve a new order from the ruins. The weight of prophecy. Prophecy was a double-edged sword in the ancient world. It was a beacon of hope to some, a curse to others. For Kronos, it was a poison that gnawed at his certainty, unraveling the threads of his power. The fear of being overthrown haunted his every breath, driving him to desperate acts, swallowing each child at birth, attempting to silence fate itself. Yet prophecy cannot be undone by denial or violence. It seeps through cracks, unseen but relentless. The cosmos held its breath, caught between dread and anticipation. The Titan's paranoia and the cracks begin as Kronos' grip tightened. Fractures began to form, not just in his throne, but in the very fabric of the Titan's rule. Trust eroded, alliances trembled, and the whisper of rebellion grew louder. Even among the Titans, shadows of doubt emerged. The earth itself seemed to respond. The heavens muttered with storms, and the tides whispered warnings. The cosmos was on the edge of a transformation it could neither resist nor control. A kingdom on the brink. The throne of the Titans was no longer impregnable. The once monolithic power showed cracks, vulnerabilities born of fear, suspicion, and the unstoppable force of destiny. It was within this tension-filled silence that the stage was set for a reckoning. A battle not merely of strength, but of wills and fates, where prophecy and fear collided, and the future hung by a thread. Stone infant, lightning child, Zeus's hidden rise. In the shadows of fear and chains, a hidden spark begins to glow, destined to ignite the heavens. Born into a world ruled by fear and swallowed by his father Kronos' cruel hunger, Zeus's story begins not with triumph, but with survival. His earliest breaths were taken in secret, hidden from the all-consuming gaze of a titan who sought to devour destiny itself. Yet the cosmos has its own plans, concealed in the dark womb of the earth, protected by his mother Rhea's cunning and the ancient powers of Gaia. Zeus was nurtured away from Kronos' grasp. Stone became his cradle, a clever ruse as a lifeless rock took his place to deceive the Titan. The secret childhood raised in hidden caves beneath Crete's rugged mountains, Zeus grew far from the throne of fear. He was nurtured by nymphs and fed by divine milk, shielded by magic and prophecy alike. But even in secrecy, the blood of the storm coursed fiercely within him. Lightning flickered in his eyes, thunder rumbled in his heart. The child who was meant to break the chains of fate was quietly gathering strength. The making of a storm god, Zeus's rise was not sudden, but a carefully kept secret, a slow-burning flame beneath the surface. His every breath, every lesson learned in the wilds, forged the storm god who would one day shake the heavens. In this hidden growth lay the promise of revolution. A new order was being born, not with the roar of battle, but with the quiet certainty of destiny. From stone to thunderbolt, the rock that saved him, once a mere symbol of deception, would become a monument to survival and cunning. It was the first of many symbols Zeus would wield, not only strength and power, but also wisdom and strategy. When the time came, the stone infant would rise as the lightning child, wielding the thunderbolt as both weapon and crown. The depths of Tartarus, forbidden allies freed. Some victories are won before the battle even begins, and some allies grow stronger the longer they are kept in darkness. The abyss beneath the world, Tartarus. If there is a place beneath the earth, then below it lies Tartarus, an abyss older than death itself, born from darkness incarnate. Neither bound by time nor space, Tartarus is a prison feared even by gods. It is the grave not only of the fallen, but of powers that the cosmos wishes to forget. Here, chained and forgotten, lay the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires, the mighty children of Uranus, brothers of Kronos. But Kronos, fearful of repeating his father's fate, did not imprison his own children, but his brothers, burying their power deep beneath the world. Forgotten giants, the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires. The Cyclopes were not just giant creatures with a single eye. They were the primal smiths who forged the thunder, lightning, and the storms themselves. They were the ancient artisans of divine weaponry. The Hecatoncheires were even more terrifying, each with 50 arms and 100 hands, embodying the chaotic, destructive force of nature itself. Not just brute strength, but the living embodiment of cataclysm. And it was to these hidden powers that Zeus turned as he prepared to wage the war that would change the cosmos forever. Zeus's descent into darkness. Zeus was no longer just a child. Having resolved to overthrow Kronos, he gathered his divine siblings atop Mount Olympus. But this war was not merely a family feud, it was a cosmic clash, and such a war could not be won by gods alone. So Zeus descended into the deepest darkness, Tartarus. To descend into Tartarus was to walk into the unknown. Even for a god, it was a journey fraught with peril and the risk of being lost forever. Zeus made an offer to the Cyclopes. Free yourselves from your chains and aid me. I need thunder, lightning, and storms. Your strength is mine to wield. The Cyclopes accepted. They did not only break their chains, but also unleashed the ancient vengeance they had long harbored. Zeus received 3 great gifts from them. Kronos, the thunderbolt, the iconic weapon of Zeus. Bronte, the thunder, the sound that brings fear to enemies and hope to allies. Astrop, the lightning, the divine sword that connects sky and earth. And the Hecatoncheires awoke. Their 100 hands and 50 arms caused mountains to tremble. Once imprisoned by Kronos' own hand, they now stood against him. Not rebellion, but revolution. The allies Zeus freed were not mere tools of war. They were harbingers of a new cosmic order. The gods would no longer be born only on Olympus. Those from the depths, from darkness itself, would now share the light. This moment symbolized a profound ideological shift in mythology. Power is not only inherited divine lineage, but also the strength of the forgotten, the imprisoned, and the outcast. This was the secret to Zeus's victory. What made him truly divine was not just his royal blood, but the power summoned from beneath the world's shadows. Tartarus is not merely a prison, but the place where potential is suppressed. Zeus's descent was not only a rescue, it was a calling back of the forgotten and the exiled. Those born from chains will break the chains that bind. An ancient Olympian proverb. The 10-year tempest, the war between titans and gods. It was not merely a war, it was a revolution that reshaped the heavens. The brink of war, clash of old and new orders. The cosmic order was cracking. On one side were the Titans, the original rulers of the universe, masters of time, nature, and matter. On the other were the Olympian gods, the new generation of deities, children of those imprisoned, ready to reclaim their destiny. And in the middle stood a turning point, the footsteps of Zeus. This was no mere throne dispute. It was the closing of an era. The order Kronos had built out of fear was crumbling. The rebellion led by Zeus began as a whisper, grew into thunder, and erupted into a cosmic war lasting 10 years. The outset of battle. Olympus versus Othrys. The war spread across the sacred mountains where gods dwell. Mount Olympus became the stronghold of the young gods, while the Titans made their stand at Mount Othrys. A battle beyond time and space unfolded between these two sacred peaks. The thunder forged by Cyclopes, the rocks hurled by Titanomachia. Poseidon's seas swelling, Hades wielding his helm of darkness. Demeter shaking the earth, Hera strategizing. In this war, the very elements became soldiers. Earth, water, fire, and air joined the fray. And Kronos, the scythe-wielding Lord of Darkness, master of time himself, stood personally against his own children. The anatomy of war. What were the gods fighting for? This was a war not just for power, but for the design of the universe. The Titans desired stability. For them, the cosmos was already set. Change meant destruction. The gods desired movement and transformation. For Zeus and his siblings, the flow of time required renewal. This war was not only vengeance, but the rewriting of the future. The heart of the tempest. Zeus's thunderbolt and the Hecatonchires. Fury. As years passed, the war evolved into a tactical battle. The turning point came when Zeus wielded the thunderbolt, gifted by the Cyclopes, and struck directly at the Titan's stronghold. One night, thunderbolts rained from the sky. The mountains shook. Seas surged. The sky ignited. At that moment, the Hecatonchires emerged from the shadows. Each giant had 100 hands and 50 arms. They hurled mountains with every limb, knocking gods to the ground. The battlefield between Olympus and Othrys became the first topographical map of the world. Because this war shaped not only gods, but the very earth itself. As myths tell, mountains, seas, valleys, and lakes were born from the scars of battle. The fall of Kronos, the end of time. At the dawn of the 10th year, the balance of power shifted. Kronos' army was broken, the Titans weary. Zeus advanced with his siblings for the final blow. Poseidon flooded the Titans with the seas. Hades struck from the shadows with his invisibility helm, and Zeus raised his thunderbolt. The sky split apart. Kronos knelt. Time itself halted. The new gods were victors. The fate of the Titans returned to Tartarus. Victory did not bring immediate peace. The gods imprisoned Kronos and the Titans back into Tartarus. But this time, the Hecatonchires stood guard over the prison. Tartarus was sealed once again. And outside, a new era began. The Age of Olympus. Zeus ascended the sky. Poseidon claimed the seas. Hades took the underworld. The gods divided the cosmos. For the first time, humans lived under a stable cosmic order. This 10-year war was not just myth. It was a metaphor for civilization. Chaos yielding to order, fear giving way to hope, darkness surrendering to light. The gods did not win by wielding thunder alone. They won by breaking chains. The first law of Olympus. Lost pages, the hidden truths behind the 10-year tempest. A war is not only about those who fight. Those behind the scenes also write destiny. Rhea's silent resistance, a mother's diplomatic genius. Though the spark of the war was ignited under Zeus's leadership, it was the patience of a silenced mother that prepared that spark. Under Kronos' rule, Rhea lost a child with every birth. But she did not only suffer, she planned. Her hiding of Zeus, deceiving Kronos with a stone, and secretly raising him, was not just a mythological story of motherhood, but a strategic counterstrike. Rhea did not fight in this war herself, but she was one of the architects of victory. Styx and loyalty, the first alliance of the gods. Before the war erupted, an interesting development occurred. Styx, the goddess who gave her name to the underworld river and a descendant of the Titans, joined Zeus's side with her children. Though this seemed like the first betrayal in mythology, it was actually a sign of the future. Styx's children, Zeus, jealousy, Nike, victory, Kratos, strength, and Bia, force, became Zeus's personal guardians. This alliance demonstrated Zeus's charismatic power among the gods and his diplomatic skills before the war. Therefore, before the war began, the Olympians gained not only an army, but also a claim of moral superiority. The river named Styx became a sacred place where divine oaths were sworn. If anyone swore upon that river again, breaking the oath meant death, even for the gods. Themis and Prometheus, the dilemma among Titans. The war was not a simple good versus evil conflict. Some Titans even switched sides. Two names are especially important here. Themis, the embodiment of justice and divine order, remained neutral throughout the war, but inwardly supported the new order. Her silence alone strengthened the Olympian's hand. Later, she became Zeus's advisor and the first deity to systematize justice. Prometheus, the Titan associated with wisdom and foresight, initially stayed neutral, but began assisting Zeus once he realized the Titan's fate was sealed. This help would later become a cause of punishment for him. The famous gift of fire to humans comes long after this war, but has its roots here. These two figures show that the Titan race was not entirely dark. Some were open to change. The war was also a division within the family. Gaia's role, the wrath of Mother Earth. The greatest being not to be forgotten is Gaia, the mother of all. Mother of the first-generation Titans, wife of Uranus, supporter of Kronos, and later an opponent even of Zeus. Though seemingly neutral during the early years of the war, she became furious after Zeus's victory and the imprisonment of the Titans in Tartarus, because these were her children. And she questioned the new order that condemned them to eternal torment. This wrath led Gaia to create the terrifying creature Typhon, which would become the greatest threat, shaking Zeus's divine throne, a subject for another chapter. Take note of this detail. Victory does not always bring peace. To win may also mean to face the mother of the universe herself. The cosmological legacy of the war, myth, not just a map. In Greek mythology, this war is not merely a story, but an explanation of how the world was shaped. According to myth, mountains shattered where lightning struck, forming valleys and rivers. Stones hurled by the Hecatoncheires became the foundation of many Aegean islands. Poseidon's swelling seas shaped the Aegean Sea. Tartarus's deepening solidified the imagery of the underworld and hell. This war left its mark not only in the sky, but in geological consciousness. In a way, Greek mythology is not the memory of the gods, but the memory of the earth. The visible face of the 10-year tempest is lightning, wars, and the clash of giants. But behind the curtain lies a mother's resistance, a goddess's loyalty, a wise one's choice, and the wrath of the earth. These details show that the story is not only magnificent, but also deep and human. Some wars are won in the sky, some by agreements in the dark. An ancient whisper from Delphi. The thunders strike, the fall of Kronos. Even the Lord of Time writes his own end with the thunder of the skies. The last tremors of the throne. After a decade of relentless war, the cosmos could no longer sustain the old order. Kronos, the master of time and father who devoured his children out of fear, was worn and weary. But his pride was his final fortress. As victory approached, the walls of his throne began to crack. The heavens roared with Zeus's thunder, yet Kronos was far from ready to surrender. For him, this was not just a battle. It was a defiance against fate itself. The sacred blow of the thunderbolt, Zeus, armed with the thunderbolt forged by the Cyclopes, prepared to unleash a divine force unlike any before. This thunderbolt was not merely a weapon. It was the embodiment of the sky's wrath, the destructive energy of nature itself. One strike could change the flow of time and destiny. On the battlefield, Zeus climbed a towering rock. He raised his hands to the sky and grasped the thunderbolt. The heavens split open, lightning flashed, thunder echoed, a voice of divine justice. The fall of Kronos. The thunderbolt struck the earth with a force that made the ground tremble. Kronos looked up to the skies, his eyes filled with both fury and resignation. The master of time understood his era was over. His golden sickle slipped from his grasp. This was the end of his reign, the birth of a new era. Kronos knelt down, yet even in defeat, he retained a power that ensured the legend would live on, for every fall births a new myth. What happened next? Kronos was overthrown and imprisoned by his children. But Zeus showed mercy. He remembered his own past suffering. Kronos was cast into Tartarus, not merely as a prisoner, but as a guardian of time and fate. This was both a just and mythologically balanced ending. For time cannot be stopped. It only changes form. The depth of the story. This chapter is not just about the fall of a ruler, but about the transformation of time itself. Zeus's thunderbolt was more than a weapon. It was the symbol of the end of an age and the dawn of a new order. Thunder is not merely a sound, but the hammer blow of justice. Ancient Olympian saying, the dawn of a new order, the Titan's chains, Olympus's crown. An era ends, another begins. Victory is not just about power, it is the crowning of order, the fragile light of victory. With Kronos' fall, the balance of the universe shifted. The Olympian gods had won a long and bloody war, yet this victory brought with it a heavy responsibility. For now they held not just power, but the task of establishing a new order. The victory was celebrated, but the gods knew well that the spark of another great calamity could ignite from this triumph. The Titans renewed imprisonment. The Titans were chained deep within Tartarus. But these chains were more than physical. They held cosmic significance, containing the ancient forces of darkness from the Old Age. This imprisonment became a cornerstone of the new order. Yet Zeus's rule was based not on oppression, but justice. Thus, the Titans' confinement was balanced with caution, mindful of their possible return. Olympus's crown, divine hierarchy and power. Sharing. Following victory, Zeus divided dominion of the cosmos with his brothers Poseidon and Hades. Zeus became king of the gods and ruler of the sky. Poseidon took command of the seas. Hades ruled the underworld and the realm of the dead. This division created a balance of power among the gods. Olympus was no longer just a home for the gods. It was the center of universal governance. Laws of the new order and impact on the world. The new order encompassed not only the gods, but also mortals. Zeus's reign influenced fate, not only among deities, but throughout the earthly realm. Laws were established to ensure justice, maintain the natural order, and preserve balance between gods and humans. In this new dawn, gods took active roles in the destinies of mankind. Myths, heroes, and prophecies became threads woven into this cosmic tapestry. Responsibility and threats, the shadows following victory. Though the dawn of the new order was bright, Gaia's wrath, the potential return of the Titans, and lurking threats in the dark corners of the universe demanded vigilance. Victory was not the end, but the beginning. The crown of Olympus symbolized not only power, but enduring responsibility and watchfulness. Every crown casts a shadow of chains. Victory requires both strength and guardianship. Ancient wisdom of Olympus.